And there were, I want to say about 4 of the guys that all came over from Italy. And you'd overhear them talking, and the language is beautiful. It made you jealous that you couldn't speak it.
It is beautiful.
Yeah.
And in southern Italy is very much like that now. I mean, you know, it was, the whole of Italy is much more educated now than it was.
Sure.
when my
I think
friends-
anywhere you go.
Anywhere you go, Ireland is
Sure.
an example, a good example.
Now, was it Lago? Was
Lago.
that was Lago south?
Provincia di Cosenza, which is in the ankle.
Okay, sure, because it looks like a boot, so
In
it's
the
down.
ankle. In the ankle.
Okay, very good. So when your dad came over, where in the United States did he settle in?
He had relatives in Brownsville, Pennsylvania,
Okay.
and he arrived in New York, and his uncle met him in New York. A day later, by train, they were in Brownsville, Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
A day later, he was in Pike Mine, a mile deep, digging coal.
Okay. Can I actually ask, when he got to the States and he was in New York, was that Ellis Island? Did he go
Yes,
through
he
Ellis
went
Island?
through Ellis Island, yes.
Okay. And then he went
his name is recorded on the wall.
It is.
Yes.
Do you know what his name is? Can you?
What's that?
What was his name?
Giovanni Battista DePasquale.
Giovanni Battista.
And so when he went to work at the glass factories, the first work in the mine, they said, that's baloney, your name's John Patsy. And he went through that for many years.
Okay.
And when I discovered, my children never went through what I went through. I went through my teenage deals as Tony Patsy.
Mm-hmm.
And I regretted it very much, you know, because they changed a beautiful name
Yeah.
to one like, this is so simple, didn't make sense.
Sure.
But I was lucky, because this just didn't happen to me, it happened to a lot of people.
Absolutely.
A lot of people. A lot of Irish people.
Now, with your last name, does your last name, does it track back to, I heard that some of the Italian last names would be like where you're from, like you'd be like Giovanni, like did you say your dad's name was Giovanni? Giovanni. So it would be like he'd be Giovanni of a certain town, and is that what DePasquale translates out to?
No, the only thing I can say is that I remember my parents telling me is that the northern Italians looked down their nose at the southern Italians.
Okay.
Similar to what we did in this country for many years.
Sure.
And I didn't notice that difference when I went to Italy to visit later on, but you know, education, they didn't even educate the people in southern Italy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the whole of Italy is well educated.
Absolutely, absolutely. So now, when you were born in Brownsville, Pennsylvania?
No, I was born in Spring Hill Township, Pennsylvania, but in the village of Point Marion, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
But it was basically a village, very small.
And I'm sorry to jump back and forth. You told me that your dad's name was Giovanni Battista DePasquale. What was do you know what your mom's maiden name was?
Micheli, M-I-C-E-L-I.
Michele? Okay.
Micheli.
And what was her first name?
Ottavia Micheli. Ottavia meaning eighth.
Oh, okay,
She
sure.
was the eighth child in the family.
Okay. So can you say her whole name again? It was Octavia?
O-T-T-I-V-I-A.
Mm-hmm. And Michele.
Otto is 8.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. And so then you have 3 other siblings? Because you said there were 4 of you?
4 of us.
And so you had 1 brother and 2 sisters, or 2 brothers and 1 sister?
Anita was the oldest.
Mm-hmm.
She was 11 months older than I was.
Okay.
And she's passed away. I was the second. Lydia's the third. She's 84. And my youngest just died a few months ago.
Sorry.
He was 80 just not quite. He was 79. He had been 80 in July.
Okay. And what was his name?
John. Actually, his name was John.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't call him Giovanni. They called him John.
Okay. And what year were you born?
1922.
1922. Okay. I'm going to go through some of the questions that are listed on here. And some of them are less serious than others.
Sure.
I know that part of what Tom is looking to do is when the kids are still young, he wants some of the questions to almost be questions that would make a kid smile.
Right.
So he's asking, what's your favorite color?
Blue.
Blue, okay. And do you have a favorite food?
Spaghetti.
Spaghetti, okay. Now, do you do your spaghetti with like butter and garlic, or do you do it with the red?
The real thing with tomato sauce.
Do you call your tomato sauce gravy? I grew up on Long Island, and I had a lot of Italian friends, and some of their parents would be from Italy, and sometimes they would refer to the sauce as the Sunday gravy because they would cook it all day Sunday.
We just call it tomato sauce.
Tomato sauce, okay. One of the questions is a favorite place.
Favorite place in the world, or?
It's pretty vague, so I guess you can interpret
The
it.
thing is, I've been in 35 countries,
Mm-hmm.
every continent. And if I had to pick the favorite place that I wouldn't mind living, it's in Italy, and it's an artistic town. What is the name of that town, Nancy, up in northern Italy? That I am beginning to forget things. Where they had that Michelangelo and
Venice?
Is it Florence?
Florence.
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 Firenze.
Yeah, Firenze.
Firenze is the name.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful town. I mean,
Yeah.
and I certainly did not speak the language that they spoke in Firenze.
Do you
I
speak
can
it?
understand them, but if they
Okay.
spoke slowly,
Sure.
I mean, they speak very good Italian.
Yeah. Can you speak Italian?
Yes,
Okay.
I can understand everything in Italian.
Sure.
Parlo italiano lo stesso che parlo in inglese. Oh, I went to first grade, I could speak Italian, but I couldn't speak English.
Did you guys speak Italian in your household as you were growing up?
Yeah.
Okay. I heard a story from Tom, and then I'll get back to some of the other questions. He had said that, and I want to say that it was your father. Would you guys cash his checks for him because you spoke English but he didn't? Is that accurate? Or
Would I do what?
I heard a story, and unfortunately I just don't remember the details. With your father, when he would get paychecks for his job, did you and your sisters go and cash the checks
Yes.
for him because you spoke English?
By the time we were 8 years old, we would go to the bank and cash the check and pay the bills and stuff like that.
Okay.
He never saw his checks.
Sure.
We'd go to the office and they would give it to us, and took care of it.
And you did that because you were able to speak English and he wasn't?
Well, for two reasons. That was one reason. And the other reason, my father was a hard worker.
Mm-hmm.
People complain about overtime.
Mm-hmm.
He could never get enough overtime. If they wanted him to work 16 hours, 6 days a week, he would work 18 hours, 6 days a week.
Okay.
And so as a result, people talk about the Depression. Well, they raised a family of 4 during the Great Depression.
Mm-hmm.
The Great Depression, because, we haven't had any, these recessions are not depressions.
Sure.
There's a big difference.
Yeah, we're still going out to eat at restaurants.
That's correct.
Yeah.
But what was the subject? I lost the train.
We were talking about how you guys would cash the checks for
Oh,
him,
yeah.
and it was
But
about.
we did all the financial transactions. Anita was very good
Your
at
older
that.
sister.
My older sister.
Mhm.
She would go to the bank and they would cash a check for her. She'd stop at the grocery bill and pay them, because we would charge it, and she'd give them $10 or whatever it was. And, but we did all that. Once we learned how to read and write in school, we basically handled my mother was very conscious of money.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, when we paid the bills, she handled the cash, and by the way, no matter how uneducated people are, they understand what cash is.
Intelligence is innate, so I'm sure your parents were very smart. They just didn't have the education from books.
Exactly, they had no education.
Sure.
Now, they could both read and write.
Okay.
They picked it up, whether in church or how they picked it up, they could both read and write in Italian.
Okay.
Neither one of them could read and write or speak. My mother just refused to speak English in front of us,
Okay.
which was good for us, but bad for her. But in the meantime, from the time I was born, if anybody came to the house and spoke English, she could converse with them.
Mm-hmm.
But she didn't want, and as a result, basically, I remember going downtown with my mother sometimes, and I wouldn't even want to walk next to her because she would speak to me in Italian. And I was embarrassed that she was speaking to me in Italian.
Uh-huh.
And it goes to show what the times do, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And of course, and the other thing, and we got people remember, Negroes have gone through worse things than anybody in this country. There's no question about it. And I'm not
Okay.
trying to, but it was not uncommon when I was a kid to have an adult call me a dago,
Okay.
a whopper, a guinea.
Sure.
We were the lowest people in that town.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, they had a glass factory that employed many people, and the best job you could have in that glass factory was a glass blower.
Mm-hmm.
It was sewed up by Belgians. If you were in Belgium, you couldn't become a glass blower.
Okay.
I was the first one in Point Marion ever to become a glass blower because they ran out of Belgians. And they wanted somebody that was strong and physically capable
Mm-hmm.
of working hard. I mean, I worked over a hole that was 15 feet deep and 30 feet long,
Mm-hmm.
and a big blast furnace in front of me to make cylinders.
Yeah.
And because they couldn't find any Belgians to do it. Not because, and they had the GI Bill. It was after I was out of the service, they used the GI Bill to train me.
Okay. Can I ask you, you said you made cylinders.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be would you be making jars, or what were the cylinders for?
Where I worked, they make jars. They used to blow the bottles and stuff
Mhm.
like that. They had the bottle house where they would blow bottles.
Okay.
A cylinder, you used a 20-pound pipe,
Mm-hmm.
and a gather would gather 20 to 22 pounds of molten glass on the end of it,
Mm-hmm.
and keep shaping it round. Not until it got cold, but it was sort of solid on the pipe.
Sure.
They could run it down to a block, and then you made a cap about that big around.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was what they called a swing hole, which was 20 feet long, about 3 feet wide,
Mm-hmm.
and 15 feet deep, and a blast furnace ahead of it. So you would blow this cap, start the shape of the nozzle of the pipe, shape up a cap, the size that you wanted the sheet of glass. And after that, by the time you did that, it was gotten cold, so you put on a swinging gate into this furnace
Mm-hmm.
and get it to flop around.
Did you literally blow it
You
into the
wouldn't blow it
pipe?
while it was on the
Okay.
gate. But then you would drop it off the gate and you put your mouth on it.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't have to blow very hard. I mean, but you had to hold that thing to stretch it and make sure you filled it up, because otherwise you'd get a cylinder that was,
Okay.
you had to keep it straight. And you did, the first, after blowing the cap, which was off of a ball bearing deal that you would blow the cap, then you would start using this hole, and they would put it on a swinging gate, and you do it 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, I remember being like over here, and the end of the cylinder be over that door.
Really?
And the pipe was about that long. Well, not that door, not quite that far, where your suitcase is. And we would go like this, and that pipe would come up, and we would catch it on this ball bearing on the swinging gate. And finally, when it was finished, it'd be a cylinder that would be net 8 to 10 feet long,
Okay.
and in circumference, anywhere from 36 to about 40 inches in circumference. And they would cap both ends off, and then crack it in 2 with a cracking iron. And then they'd put it in a flattening oven and make a sheet of glass out of it. And that's how they made window glass.
So you first would make a cylinder,
You make a cylinder.
and then you would make a window.
As a matter of fact, when I was in training for that, under the GI Bill, I learned how to be a glass blower. They got a big order they were building Williamsburg, and they were redoing the White House.
Mm-hmm.
And they were looking for glass that had flaws in it.
To look more antique?
Antique, very antique. And what we would do is gather crystal glass
Mm-hmm.
and save all of this, the stuff we would sweep off the floor and throw it on there and then just pound it with it. And it would come out with bubbles and sand in it to look like antique glass.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And we did that, but we also blew, it used to be that they didn't have neon signs.
Mm-hmm.
The way they would have signs is that they called it flash, and it'd be crystal glass with a white cover on it. It was like a quartz-like deal. It would be a different kind of glass.
Okay.
So you had to gather two things to get a lump going, and then you would cover it with this last one, which would be any color you wanted it. And white was usually this opal glass.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would put that up as a sign glass and paint the sign, and then put the lights. You wouldn't see the lights, but you would see the sign. And,
Okay.
and then neon sort of killed that business. And of course, machines killed the glass blowing business completely.
Sure.
For instance, at one time, my hometown, which only had 1,500 people,
Mm-hmm.
was the sunglass center of the United States.
Say the part again. Sunglass?